Oh, hey there, mates. Welcome aboard the VHS Pirate Ship. I'm Captain Adam, and welcome to the show and tell that treats you well. It's Captain Adam's show and tell. How you doing out there? I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well in here. It's a splendid day here out at sea on the VHS Pirate Ship. Calm seas, nice sunshine. Oh, it's just so pleasant. It really is. I hope things are pleasant for you in your neck of the woods. I truly, truly do. So welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me today on this special episode of the show and tell. I guess they're all pretty special. And I say special because today I'm going to be doing one of the collection highlights that feature films that star a particular actor. And today I'm going to be doing that with Steve Martin, one of my favorite comedians. Certainly just a very prevalent figure in cinematic history and in comedy in general. Through the 80s, Steve Martin was in many, many films, and that really didn't slow down through the 90s either, and even into the 2000s. And, well, he's still active today. So, yeah, Steve Martin, a very prolific actor and comedian. Just a very, very wild and crazy guy, as he was referred to as long ago. And not only, did he do many, many movies, he's also done plenty of stand-up specials. He was on Saturday Night Live, and he just did a lot of stuff, and we certainly appreciate his work. And I certainly appreciate you out there, you for watching. Thank you for checking me out today. I hope you enjoy it. I hope this is a very relaxing and informative, fun time for you out there. And I hope everything is going very, 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 very swell for you. I hope you're going through some good times, but if you're going through some bad times, I am sorry to hear that. But as always, I encourage you to please keep going. Please stay positive in all things. Look onward and upward. Look to God and trust in Jesus Christ, and everything is going to be all right. Please understand that everything is the cog in a wheel of the greater machine. Let me start over again. Please understand that everything that happens is a cog in the wheel of the greater plan and action. And God's got a plan for you. Just put your trust in that. And like I said, look onward and upward. And things are going to be splendid for you. They certainly will. It's all about attitude. It really is. 90% of what happens to you in life is how you handle it. So always approach everything with a positive outlook and attitude. Don't run away from things. Embrace them. Run headlong into them, and you'll be surprised at the results. So here we are in March, about mid-March here in 2025 already. So I hope that the New Year is treating you well. How are those New Year's resolutions you might have had? How are they holding up to 2025? Are you getting things done? Are you progressing in your plans at all? I hope you are. I hope you stick with it. And please don't get discouraged if things aren't popping off as soon as you'd like them to. Things take time. Always remember, Rome was not built in a day, as they say. And of course, a seed doesn't bear any fruit. The tree does, in which the seed comes from. So, every seed that is planted will be a nice plump fruit tree someday, and that is your plan coming to fruition. So yes, please don't give up on your plans. Remember, not everybody is training for a marathon. Just every bit of progress is progress. And like I always say, even a slow clock, though it may tarry, it eventually gets to its promised destination. So yes, please stick with your plans. Don't give up, and everything is just going to be peachy keen. I really want you to believe that, and know that there's people behind the scenes rooting for you, cheering for you, praying for you. Hey, I'm one of them. I'm here for you. This is your old buddy Captain Adam reminding you to stay positive in all things, and it's going to be all right. Trust me. So before we get started here, let me just say I hope you join me over at Rob's Vintage Video every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Tape Talk with Rob and the Captain. It's a live stream that Rob over at Rob's Vintage Video was kind enough to invite me to do, this little syndicated live stream. And it's always a really, really fun time. We talk about tape. Well, we talk about not just tapes, but just about everything. So you can chime in on the conversation and join us. We talk about all sorts of silliness. It's a fun time. So please head on over to Rob's Vintage Video here on YouTube. Hit subscribe, and we will see you Friday nights. It's going to be a good time. That's Friday Night Tape Talk with Rob and the Captain over at Rob's Vintage Video here on YouTube. Hit subscribe. And you know what? If you haven't already, subscribe to me while you're at it. I always appreciate that. And I certainly hope you dig my stuff. And I should say, too, if you're new to the channel, and if you are a fan of the channel and you've been with me for a while, by the way, this month marks 5 years of Captain Nana's VHS Pirate Ship being on YouTube, so that's pretty fun. And within that 5 years, I have many videos, lots of material, but since it is rather old now, you'll have to do some digging. So go to my channel and just sort of peruse the playlist, because not all my videos are show and tell videos. They're not all like this. There was a time I did very verbose videos, the adventures and just all kinds of retrospectives. It's a good time. A lot of film reviews, a lot of VHS history, a lot of just fun stuff. I've always had a fun time making these videos, so please make sure you go and check out the archives of my videos. I'm sure you won't be disappointed, and if you are, I apologize in advance. So, hey, with all that being said, with all that out of the way, how about we get on to my Steve Martin VHS collection. Now, that is to say, movies that contain Steve Martin, not Steve Martin's VHS collection, because why would I have that? Steve Martin should have his VHS collection if he does. I wonder if he does, or I wonder if he did it one time. I'm sure he did it one time. I think we all did it one time, and some of us still have them, like yours truly here. So anyways, here are the Steve Martin movies in my VHS collection, I should say. And if you've watched previous episodes of the show and tell, some of these tapes will be familiar to you. I think there's 3 of them that I've already covered in previous show and tell episodes for varying reasons, and when we get to them you will know, and I won't talk too much more about them since I've already covered them, but there are plenty more that I haven't discussed yet, and I think we should start off rather strong, very strong I should say, with an absolute, not just a classic Steve Martin film, but an absolute classic film in and of itself, a classic comedy with The Jerk. And my goodness, what can I really say about this film? This film is just a stitch. It's just so funny, and it holds up today. I think I first watched this. Excuse me. I first watched this film when I was 14 or 15. I think it was on television. And of course, then it came on television again, and I had to tape it because I loved it so much. So I did tape it off television, but eventually I would come across VHS, the VHS distribution. Not just one, but also there's another one, which I'm going to get to. This is a 1997 MCA Universal Home Video distribution, and I came across this in a thrift store many years ago. And of course, I just simply had to have it. But then, years later, I would also come across this other distribution, which is a earlier one, an MCA home video distribution. You could tell by not only the title of the distribution company, but also the logo itself, the MCA home video logo, very 80s, very nostalgic. This is the second logo MCA Universal had. There was an original logo they started with, and I actually do have a Steve Martin tape that contains that logo as well, and we'll certainly get to that. This particular VHS is a 1985 MCA home video distribution. As you can see there, in comparison, there are differences, however subtle, but the more you look at them, the more they are quite different. Just not only the home video distribution logo, but also the back, the format of the layout of the back of the case is different, and well, it's just different. And I almost forgot I had this separate distribution when I was digging out my Steve Martin stuff for this tape, and then I came across it, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is a different distribution. Oh, I forgot I had it. That's the problem when you have a lot of stuff. You kind of forget you have certain things at a time. So every time you straighten up or organize or clean, you always get distracted by stuff you forgot you had, which is why it usually ends up taking me about 3 days to clean the VHS Pirate Ship, because I am easily distracted, most certainly so. So we're going to go from one classic Steve Martin film to another with Three Amigos. Now, this also could be considered a Chevy Chase classic and a Martin Short classic, because Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Chevy Chase all star in this film. You could say that they all have top billing. They have equal billing because they're all very crucial to this film. They're all main characters. So, I mean, I will eventually do a Chevy Chase and Martin Short VHS collection show and tell. So you're probably going to see this tape again, because not only is Three Amigos a Steve Martin classic, but it's also a Chevy Chase and Martin Short classic as well, as I had said. So, you really can't just talk about Steve Martin in this. It's the other two had every bit as much to do with it as Steve Martin did. So yes, Three Amigos, again, what can I say about this? Classic film. Loved this film. Saw this probably when I was like 5 or 6 years old on HBO. Just loved it ever since. Just such a delightful film. Delightful film. It's a fun film. It's just fun to watch. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this film, and every time it's on television or anywhere, if I see it, I'm going to watch it because I just love it so much. It's just it's just a fun movie, just the way it was shot, the way it feels, just the jokes hit all the time, and of course, how could you not love El Guapo? Great movie villain. He's very, very threatening, but he's also just rather charming, and well, I've said it before, delightful, because really everything in this film is delightful. Even the villain is. It's just a very, very, very well done movie, very pleasing movie. Just absolutely love this film, and absolutely love this VHS. This is a 1986 HBO home video / Orion home video, or Orion, as my good buddy Rob says. So it really should be pronounced Orion, but we say Orion. So this is a co-distribution between HBO Home Video and Orion Home Video. Pretty sure it's the first distribution. I'm not, excuse me, I'm not entirely sure about that, but still, either way, early distribution, 1986, HBO Home Video, Orion Home Video co-distribution here. I love having this. A great thrift store find. I found this years and years ago. Of course, you come across Three Amigos, you got to pick it up. It's one of those films. So let's move on. And we're going to do so with one of the already mentioned tapes I've already talked about in previous show and tell episodes. Here we have Roxanne, another Steve Martin. Well, here's the thing. I've already talked about this actually twice. I talked about it in the Betamax collection home video and the RCA Columbia TriStar home video show and tells I had. So because I do have the Betamax of this, and I also have this one, as you see here. So it was featured, and I talked about this film in 2 other show and tell episodes, so I'm not really going to talk about Roxanne again, but it is nice to have this early distribution, and it's a film worth checking out, as I said in those other episodes. So that's all I'm really going to say about this film. It's a Steve Martin film, so I had to include it. That's why that's why you're seeing it again, and that's why we're talking about it again. So yes, Roxanne, had to include it. Definitely a Steve Martin classic, though you don't hear about it too much, but it was one of his big films when Steve Martin was really, really heating up on the cinematic scene. So let's move on. And here's another one that I've already discussed in a previous episode. Steve Martin Live, a Steve Martin stand-up special released by Vestron Video. And since it was released by Vestron Video, it is featured in the show and tell video about my Vestron Video collection, which is the very first show and tell video. So yeah, go back and check that out if you want to. If not, hey, that's fine too. But just know that I've already talked about this. Well, like I said, not much of a tape there, not even a label on it, but oh well. Yeah, I already talked about this. I love having it because I am a big collector of Vestron Video stuff, so every time I come across Vestron Video stuff, especially in thrift stores or used bookstores or flea markets, I certainly pick them up, and certainly if it's a Steve Martin tape. So that's why I have this one. Already talked about it. Not going to talk about it anymore. So let's move on. Now, not all of my VHS collection were obtained through thrift stores. Sometimes they were obtained through just big lots of VHS, and that's how you get some of your tapes. And that's how I got these 2 films, which you might be surprised I have. Father of the Bride 1 and 2. Not really my cup of tea. Certainly not my. I do like comedies, but I don't know, not really necessarily comedies like this. But you know what, I am being rather unfair here. I haven't seen these. All I know is I don't particularly have any interest in watching them, but I am happy to have them because they are Steve Martin movies. And not only that, these 2 films did do very well for Steve Martin. They were rather successful, and certainly, I think it's really the most recent work of his that I have in my VHS collection, because when did these come out? Were they early 2000s? I don't remember. But anyways, yeah, maybe one day I'll give these a chance. Martin Short's in them as well, so Martin Short is in this one. It should be good to see those 2 on film again together. So, I mean, I don't know, on its face, Steve Martin and Martin Short in this film, I don't really have much of a reason not to like it, but For some reason, I'm thinking it's a romantic comedy. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe it's just a preconceived notion that I have that's rather unfair, and maybe I shouldn't have such a prejudice. But it is what it is. So I don't know. I'll probably fire these up one day. But for now, I just have them in my collection, and since they are Steve Martin movies, had to show them off. Like I said, I had no intention of owning these films, but they came in a big set of VHS I got for rather cheap, so you really can't say no when they're on the in the bottom of the box. You don't even know they're in there. I'm not going to send them back to the guy. I mean, that would be rather ungrateful. When it comes to VHS lots, you get what you get, and that's just how it is. And how it is now is we're going to move on. Up next is the last of the tapes that I've already talked about in previous show and tell episodes with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. How can you talk about Steve Martin and not talk about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, even though I've talked about this particular tape and film in the Thanksgiving episode of the show and tell, what I call Tapesgiving. So if you want to, go back and check that out. I do talk in great detail about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, one of my favorite films. I mean, and again, much like Three Amigos, Steve Martin isn't the only starring role. He basically, shares top billing, and in this one, he shares it with John Candy. So not only is this a Steve Martin classic, but also a John Candy classic. And of course, the film wouldn't be the same without either of these two. So they make the movie. The chemistry was just very, very well done between these two. Love this film. I mean, who doesn't love this film? It's up there. Got to be one of the greatest comedies in America. Not just one of the greatest movies in general, because it is one of the greatest movies in general, because it is very, very touching, and it's and of course one of the only Thanksgiving movies. I mean, this film has a lot of merit. It certainly does. A John Hughes classic. It's a good time. There is something I didn't discuss in the Thanksgiving episode about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the show and tell episode, I should say. I do bring up I can't remember if I brought up the Kevin Bacon cameo, and how my theory is he's actually Kevin Bacon's character, and She's Having a Baby, another John Hughes film in which Neil Page's wife is actually watching She's Having a Baby on television in one of the scenes for a very, very bit part. So that gets confusing. But anyways, a lot of people pay attention to that theory. I don't think it's my theory. It might have been broached before by somebody else, but I know a lot of people discuss that. But nobody ever really seems to realize that I think Ferris Bueller's dad is in this film as well, because in the beginning, the guy that Neil Page is with, and he's showing it to the head of the company, the advertising draft that they're showing to the head of the company, the guy he's sitting with, and he says, he has to go and all this. That's the same actor who played Ferris Bueller's dad in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is another John Hughes film. So I can't help but think that maybe that is the same character, because it doesn't really discuss it in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but there is a scene outside the restaurant with Ferris Bueller's father talking to his business associates, and they're talking about advertising. So obviously, Ferris Bueller's dad is in marketing in some capacity, and of course in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Neil Page is in marketing, and that's what that particular meeting that they were attending in the beginning of the film was about marketing, about an advertisement. So obviously he works for an advertising firm or a marketing firm, and so does Ferris Bueller's dad. So I can't help but wonder, is that Ferris Bueller's dad? I mean, it very well could be. It never really goes into great detail. In fact, you never see that character again after that opening sequence of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So I just wanted to say that. I meant to mention that in the Thanksgiving episode of the show and tell, but I just really slipped my mind. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. It's time for audience participation. Do you think that that's Ferris Bueller's dad? There is a lot of evidence to support that it is. So let me know in the comments below. Anyways, here's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And as I discussed in the Tapesgiving episode of the show and tell, I do have multiple distributions of this, different years. But I'm just going to show this one here. And since I've already talked about it, I'm not going to talk about it any further, so let's move on. Now, here's one that's more than likely in your VHS collection with Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, and I say that because it seems like it's a very, very common thrift store find, or at least it was when you could actually find VHS in thrift stores. As I've lamented on the show many times before that the thrifting game, as far as VHS goes, has certainly dropped off significantly. But when I did find a lot of VHS in thrift stores, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels was certainly very, very common, and so that is that. It really, as far as this film goes, I can't really say I'm all too big of a fan of it. I mean, it's funny, but it's one of those where it just seems like it goes on a little bit too long, and there are just a lot of like just dull parts, in my opinion. I mean, the Steve Martin stuff's really funny. He works really well with Michael Caine, and of course, Steve Martin does pretty much share top billing with Michael Caine. So this is a Steve Martin movie as well as a Michael Caine movie. Just basically like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a Steve Martin and John Candy film, and of course Three Amigos, Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short. So he just sort of shares the spotlight with all of them. But in this, of course, he shares the spotlight with Michael Caine. I mean, they do fine. I mean, it's just I don't know. This movie just really isn't. Not really my cup of tea, I guess you could say. I've watched it a few times, and I'm probably not going to watch it again just because. And I don't know. It's just not one of my favorites. But a Frank Oz film. Frank Oz directed this, and of course I'm a fan of Frank Oz, but not really in this instance. But that's okay. Here we have it's a 1988 Orion home video distribution. I think this is the first distribution. I could be very, very wrong about that. I'm not sure, but I know it also had a couple of other distributions through the 90s. But this is the only one I have, and really the only one I want. So yeah, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, not my favorite Steve Martin film, but happy to have it all the same. And I believe I think I actually have two other copies of this, just because. Sometimes you get stuff and you don't remember if you already have them, so you just get them because you're like, well, it's a quarter, what's the big deal? And you get home, or you get on board your pirate ship, like in my case, and you realize that you already have it, or you have two of them, and you're like, oh, well, what are you going to do? So, yes, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, there it is. And what do we got next? How about a fairly forgotten about and rather underrated Steve Martin film with Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid? Steve Martin's a little take on film noir. It's a film noir spoof. This is a very early distribution. I think the first distribution. And do you remember earlier when I was talking about the first MCA home video logo with the little rainbow arch? Well, here it is when it was known as MCA Video Cassette Incorporated. And that's nice because it actually has the date right on the spine. It's 1982 distribution. That's very, very curious. Not a lot of tapes did that, so that's very easy to find the date on this tape. So this is a 1982 MCA home video distribution, or rather MCA Video Cassette Incorporated distribution. X rental copy there from, I'm guessing, Video Warehouse. Part of the letters are blocked off, but yeah, Video Warehouse. Dead Man Don't Wear Plaid. And unfortunately, this particular copy is bunk. There's something wrong with the audio where it's very, very muffled, and not even the tracking will fix it. So this tape is sort of useless. So that's kind of sad. I have to get another one of these for my collection in the future. But it was a thrift store find. I got it a long time ago. Again, when you can find VHS in thrift stores, and this one was only a quarter. And of course, you take the gamble when you buy VHS from thrift stores. And it's helpful that it was only a quarter, so not too big of a loss, but still great for my shelf. Great that I have this, because it is a very, very fine Steve Martin film, and it's nice to have. And I always love collecting these early MCA releases. What they have, that I guess it's the rainbow logo, because it's got that arch over top of it, and it's just very, 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 very early 80s looking, very, very nostalgic. And because, well, it is very, very early 80s, isn't it? I know they have the Universal Monsters, the Universal Dracula film. They released that, I think also in 81 or 82, or I should say also in 82, maybe in 81, maybe 83. Very early VHS distribution of Dracula with that logo. Same goes for Frankenstein, but well, I'm off topic here. I don't know what I'm talking about. But yes, love that logo. Always try to find the MCA home videos that have that early logo on them. So yes, happy to have this. Too bad I can't really watch it because, well, I can watch it, I just can't really hear it. So that's a little distracting. So, anyways, hey, let's get going. Next is one of my absolute favorite films with Parenthood. Just what a delightful movie! It's really funny and it's really touching. It's really engaging. It's just a very, 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 very well done film. I remember I watched this with my family when it first came out. We rented it. I think it was in 1990 or 91 when it first came out on VHS, and I loved it ever since. It's just a really great movie. This is you can see the second MCA home video logo, still the late 80s MCA logo. So this is a earlier release, 1990 MCA home video release there. So this is the first VHS release of Parenthood. And what's great about this movie is that it's not only Steve Martin, but it's got a lot of people in it as well. Rick Moranis is in it. Diane Wiest is in it. Is it Wiest or West? I don't know. Diane Wiest, the mom from The Lost Boys. She's just, I love her and everything, especially in this. Like, she is hilarious in this. Very, very well done portrayal. She did a great job, and she always does. I'm a big fan of Diane Wiest, and she's great in The Birdcage. She's great. She's a great actress, and she's very, very funny in this. The movie wouldn't be the same without her. And this also stars Keanu Reeves in one of his very, very early roles. I think it's the first thing he starred in right after Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So yeah, very, very early Keanu Reeves work, and he certainly does not disappoint in this. He does a great job. Again, the movie would not be the same without him or his character. In fact, his character just wouldn't be right if it wasn't portrayed by Keanu Reeves. So very, very well done. And this also stars a very, very young Joaquin Phoenix. Of course, back then when this was made, he went by Leaf Phoenix. So he went through a bit of a name change, but that is Joaquin Phoenix in what I think is his first role. I'm not entirely sure, but it's interesting to see him in this at such a young age, an early acting stage of his career, and what he would go on to become. It's very, very interesting to see that his roots began with Parenthood, and what a way to start, because this is a great film. I really can't go on enough about this film. Always loved this film. Just great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. And let's see, who else is in it? It's also got Stephanie from The Goonies. She's in this. I don't remember her name, but when I was a kid, I remember it was like, what? I never saw that actress in anything else except The Goonies until I saw this. I'm like, hey, wow, look at that. But that's such a pretty funny story. Well, I guess it's not really funny, but it's an antidote or whatever. You know what? I'm rambling now, but yeah, Parenthood. I found this at a thrift store, and I about went through the ceiling when I found it because I was just so happy to have it, especially the first distribution like this one is. Just great stuff. Now, I had heard that they did plan on doing a sequel to this, but they said, no, I mean, why? But they did settle on a television show, which, you could take that however you want, but I never bothered watching it because I know usually shows that are based on movies that are supposed to continue on the story aren't that good, because for one, none of the original actors are in it, and for two, they just don't hold up as shows. Movies are movies and shows are shows, of course. So continuing on a movie into a television show is very, very risky, and very, very seldom is it pulled off well, because once you change actors from, like, you get the same character with different actors, gets a little weird. I don't particularly like that, because for some reason in my mind I can never convince myself that is the same character. So it's weird to me, and I'm sure it's the same for you. So yeah, there was a Parenthood television show. I don't think it lasted very long, but it was in place of the supposed sequel. And I got to tell you, I'm sort of okay with them not doing a full-blooded sequel. Just because I don't think it would have worked. Like I've mentioned it numerous times throughout my many videos, sequels don't always work. Not every movie needs a sequel, and I think this is one of them. I think it pretty much gets its point across, and it kind of leaves it on a nice high note, and That's really all you need. But you know who else is in this? Mary Steenburgen is in this. I think she's fabulous in everything. Of course, we all know her best from Back to the Future Part 3 as Clara Clayton, and she does phenomenal in that. She does phenomenal in this, and she's also in the television movie with Ted Danson of Gulliver's Travels. If you haven't seen that, I've talked about that before on the show and tell, but my double tape collection. I can't go on enough about that. That movie's a fantastic movie, most certainly for a television movie. So yeah, check that out when you get a chance. Mary Steenburgen, she's great in everything, and most certainly great in this. So yeah, Parenthood, happy to have this, happy as a clam to have this movie in my collection. And speaking of happy to have certain movies in my collection, let's go on to our next film with L.A. Story, a very underrated Steve Martin movie, a movie that a lot of people tend to forget about, a movie that I haven't seen. Well, I watched it recently, but before that, I hadn't seen it since it came out on VHS, and my family rented it. I think, again, just like Parenthood, it was either 90 or 91. It might have been 92, I'm not sure, but that was the last time I saw it, and I just sort of really had not much of a memory about this film. And when I watched it again, it was just the other night I watched it again, and I got to tell you, man, I was very, very happy with this film, very, very surprised that it's actually as good as it is, and the fact that it's as good as it is, and you don't hear about it. It's never talked about for some reason, but it is just a very, very splendid movie, just a very well done movie. There's just a lot of really cool stuff in this, a lot of funny parts, very subtly funny parts, and a lot of just like really, really outlandishly funny parts. Like it'll surprise you, and it surprised me on how nonchalantly wacky this movie can get, because it is, and that's just the kind of movie this is. And this particular VHS is a 1995 Avid Home Entertainment distribution with the help of Carolco Home Video, or Carolco, however you want to pronounce it. Of course, Carolco or Carolco, always most famous for their action films, most famous for their Terminator 2 Judgment Day release, which was the first distribution of that film. So it is weird that they would release a movie like L.A. Story, because usually they release a lot of just action stuff, and this is not action. It's a romantic comedy. It's a romantic comedy that you really can't tell it's a romantic comedy. I mean, you can, but when you think of rom-coms, like what you think of when you think of a rom-com, it's not what this film is. There's like a lot of moving parts with this film. Of course, the main story is about romance, but I wouldn't say it's. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe this film, really. Just a very, very well done movie, very well put together film. If you haven't seen it, and maybe you haven't, because I know that a lot of people haven't seen this film, so definitely check it out however you can. It's definitely well worth it. And and also Sarah Jessica Parker is in this, one of her earlier roles, I should say, because I don't know, she was in Flight of the Navigator. I don't know if you remember that. She was in that for a little bit. That was, that's a very early role for her, but I don't know what she did in between Flight of the Navigator and L.A. Story. I don't really keep track of her career, but it was interesting to see her in this film. She's in this, and a lot of cameos, guest appearances, I guess you could say. Rick Moranis is in this for a very, very bit part, and Chevy Chase is in this for a very, very bit part. It's funny. It's just a very, very well done. Oh, Patrick Stewart's in this as well for a bit part. It's interesting to see these actors just pop up, and it's a fun movie. Definitely check it out any way you can. It's worth it. Trust me, you're going to enjoy this. You're going to enjoy this film. There's even some like mysticism in it. It's a wild movie. It's definitely a wild movie. I'm so glad I found this. I didn't find this at a thrift store because this was a rather recent acquisition. So of course I didn't find it in a thrift store. As I've said, I haven't been able to find anything in thrift stores VHS wise. But there is this secondhand bookstore and record store that I frequent in the area that I make port in. They sell VHS. They have many VHS, but they don't have thrift store prices. Their prices are a little bit more than, well, a little bit more than I would want to pay in order to consider it thrifting. They sell them for about like $3 a tape. And it's okay because you really can't find tapes anywhere in the wild. So, what the new thing about finding tapes in the wild is going to used bookstores or record stores, because a lot of them do carry at least some VHS. So you can find VHS at those sorts of establishments, but they're not going to be thrift store prices. I mean, they might be, I don't know. But when I think of thrift store prices, I think of like a quarter, 50 cents, a dollar. But $3, a little bit more than I would want to consider calling it a thrift price, because it's not really. But it's not bad considering the pickings in the wild are very, very slim. So if you yourself are experiencing the same sort of thrifting VHS desert, never go past a used bookstore or even a record store. Always pop in and well, you should pop in anyway because they're cool stores, but usually they have a VHS selection, however small it may be. It could be big, who knows, but you're not going to know until you try, right? You're not going to know until you try. So definitely, in my opinion, I think the new thrift store is going to be used bookstores and record stores. So yeah, check them out for your VHS finds in the wild. You might be surprised. So yes, and that's going to about do it for this episode of the Show and Tell. I certainly appreciate you joining me here today. It's always nice to talk to you. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you had a good time. I hope you had a nice pleasant time. I really do. And I certainly hope everything's going well for you out there. And remember, whatever you're going through, if you're going through some hard times, things are always going to turn around. You got to believe that. Look onward and upward. Put your trust in God and look to Jesus Christ, and everything is going to be all right. And whatever you're trying to accomplish, please remember, never give up. Never give up, no matter how slow your progress is. Just keep going. Don't give up. Oh, you can cuss, you can cry, but don't give up. It's just, please keep going. Things are going to work out. They are. Certainly stay positive in all things. And this is your old buddy Captain Adam, wanting you to be well and do well. So please remember to be kind, be generous, and be brave, and take care out there. And I'll see you next time, only on Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship. Goodbye, and God bless.